Nicole, welcome.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Of course, it was lovely to meet you at Patient Day. You took the stage and you were so brave and courageous to share your experience with endometriosis. Why was it important for you to talk to the patients that weekend?
I think it's just super important for all of us, especially being post-diagnosis, to share our story. Because unfortunately, we learn more about the disease from other patients than from gynecologists or primary doctors. So just the amount that I've learned from other patients, and the amount of information that we've all learned from each other, I feel like it's just super important to keep talking about it, always make it a topic of conversation, and just share our stories because each patient's different, but we still share similar stories, similar symptoms, and we can help each other out by sharing that.
Right. And yeah, you're absolutely right. As we kind of carry the torch forward with each generation and with more research and more scientific findings, it kind of clues in us. Every generation gets more clued into what could be going on with their bodies. For you, what was your experience like with endometriosis? When did you know that something wasn't quite right with your body?
So for me, I feel like I was lucky, which is like a weird choice of words, but my mom was diagnosed with endo when I was born via C-section. So I always knew what it was because the second I started having symptoms, my mom was like, all right, you must have it too. The problem was anytime it came up with a doctor, they just immediately dismissed it and said, there's nothing you could do about it. And my mom never got proper treatment. So she kind of took that answer as well as like, well, it just kind of sucks and you just have to deal with it. Here's an antidepressant, here's an anti-anxiety medication,
Oh,
fillers for your period. And then hopefully, my favorite line that I was ever told was, hopefully you go into menopause early, since everybody in your family went into menopause early. So you don't have to deal with it for as long as other women might have to deal with it. And I kind of took that as an answer. Or like, if you decide to want to have a kid, I had a doctor tell me one time, when the pain was so bad and I was on a Percocet prescription, suggested that maybe I become a surrogate when I turn 20,
what?
see if that would help, like if having a baby would help
Well,
my
first of all, that
endo.
doctor was so poorly informed because most states that allow surrogacy will say you have to already have your own children and have carried your own children before you even become a surrogate. So that is just an explosively incorrect statement on so many levels, forgetting the ethical implications at all. So it just shocks me to hear these things. And the fact that the treatment plan was for you to just suffer potentially less in terms of years. So like
Yeah.
it's totally okay for you to have, I don't know, 20 to 25 years of suffering because fingers crossed menopause will cure you of your endo, which we also know that there's plenty of endo patients that don't even have their first endo excision surgeries until they're in their 50s, their 60s, they're postmenopausal, but menopause is not a cure-all. Also going back to your mom's situation, you said that she was given, and I don't want to bring rope in your mom in this because she's not here, but a doctor really just said you have endometriosis and the only treatment was anti-anxiety, antidepressant.
Yeah. He saw like an abnormal tissue when I was being delivered. So he scraped it and tested it and it was endo. And he basically said the same thing. He's like, hopefully you go into menopause early because she was 32 by the time I was born.
Mhm.
And then she ended up going into menopause at like 40, 41.
Yeah, no, that's
Guidance she had.
yeah, that's not a solution. I actually there was a very interesting conversation that happened at South by Southwest this past week. And it was one of the researchers that is on the board for EndoFound. And she was saying, why is it that we are told in women's health, anyone born with the uterus, that we need to keep up our teeth, we need to keep up our bones, our heart health, our brain health, but we're allowing our ovarian function to die. Like we're just saying it's part of a natural decline. And her response was, we don't have to have that. There are ways to encourage ovarian health, there are ways to keep your ovaries functioning longer, but they're not being looked into in the ways that other things are. So it goes back again to, on a list of priorities, women's health falls so low. Um, So when you were able to be diagnosed, when was it where you were just like, this idea of waiting for me to hit menopause when I am still a young woman in my reproductive years? When were you like, I can't take this anymore? What were some of your symptoms like that led you to getting the proper treatment?
So the main reason being all my mom's issues, just seeing like health issues she's having now, and just being able to like research it and tie it into endometriosis for so many years being undiagnosed or untreated. So that was my like driving force. And then by the time my symptoms really started at like 16, like when they became unbearable, intolerable, missing school, missing work. I was homeschooled for like 2 years,
Oh,
because I was like trial and error medication. Then I was on a stomach medication that got me to like be able to function. And then during my periods, I would just be out, but at least it was once a month, not every day. And then right around, I'm 26 now, so 25 is when like this, like no doctors giving me an answer. Even the medications that I was trying, like nothing was working. Even the painkillers, like I just built up such a what is that called? A tolerance to it.
tolerance. Mhm.
Yeah, so that wasn't even working, or I would have to take like 10 Motrin a day. And I'm like, this
Oh,
is doing more damage to my body, like to my
right.
gut. Like, this is none of this is sustainable anymore. So that's how I found my doctor and went to the consult, and it was super, I guess, easy to diagnose from his perspective. So surgery happened pretty quickly. And not like the difference that I feel just even a month out. I mean, I'm almost a year now, but just a month out from it, I stopped taking half the medication that I was on. I haven't had a UTI once, and I was getting them 4 times a year prior.
Wow.
So it was a lot of antibiotics too, which didn't help. And
No.
when I get my period, I'm taking Motrin and Tylenol like for 24 hours, and I'm taking the proper dosage, which for me is great. And yeah, I'm just able to function.
What was your, you mentioned you had stomach issues and you were on a stomach medication. A lot of times we've heard this kind of repeatedly, even at patient day, that so many patients were told, oh, you have IBS, you have lactose intolerance, you're nervous. Those are all related to your gut when we're hearing that there's a correlation between endometriosis and stomach issues around your menstrual cycle. So what was that like for you?
My stomach issues were exacerbated by my cycle, but they were pretty much every day. So that's why I was on an antispasmodic. And if I didn't take it in the morning, I wouldn't be able to eat at all. And that was for like 8 to 9 years. And then I just haven't needed it since surgery. But even the foods that I've been able to try, like I couldn't eat strawberries. I couldn't, like dairy was out the door.
Yeah.
It was also weird because it wasn't like I can't eat this, like I can't eat XYZ. It was just, it depended on the day. So it's like hard to then even go out to eat or just eat in like a public setting because you're like, is this going to bother me? I'm not sure. So it's like the safe foods to eat were like rice, or I would bring rice cakes with me everywhere because if
Oh,
there was like a tiny stomach ache, I'm like, I can't eat in public because who knows how I'm going to react to it.
yeah. No, that's when you had your endo excision surgery, did they find lesions or adhesions like on any part of your intestine or in that? Yeah.
Yeah, so the when I first went in for my consult, like the way that I explained my symptoms, they're like, you probably have like one lesion up against your colon and we'll take it away, your stomach aches will get better. And that just shows like how our pain scales as patients are so skewed, because then what they thought would be one based on how I express my symptoms, I had like 25 just around my colon and then my rectum, and they
Oh,
kind of like go into my colon. Um, so I'm very lucky I had a safe recovery. I didn't have a bowel resection or anything. So
mhm.
I get my lucky stars for that. But it's
Yeah.
just crazy to me how, like, the way you explain your symptoms, even doctors who've been doing this for however many years, like they're going based off what you tell them. Like it's exploratory, and how most patients, once they actually get inside you, it's way worse than how you explained it.
Hmm.
It's
Hmm.
so used to it. Like it's 10 years on average of pain. Like your tolerance is just so skewed.
Yeah, no, I agree with that because this was one of my, I think this was in 2019. It was right after my son was born, and I had same thing. It was like for months, just not feeling right, not feeling right, not feeling right. And then when I went in for an emergency surgery, they were like, "How are you walking around? Like, how are you walking around?" And I'm like, "Well, I was really uncomfortable and I felt awful, but I also was told that it could have been fatigue causing me, to not feel well with the exhaustion part. And then I was probably, lifting the wrong muscles after having a baby via C-section. So you just kind of like rationalize your pain
Yeah.
and think it's all these different contributing factors when really you're just like very sick and you have a lot of endo going on, and a big inflammatory process on top of that. So I do think you're right. We've heard a lot too about like your staging of endometriosis doesn't necessarily correlate with your pain because it depends upon where the lesions are sitting. Are they on nerve endings? Like, what are all those things? I mean, for you, thankfully, you are now, like you said, in a tremendously lower pain scale than you were, that you're being able to treat it with over the counter, like Tylenol medications like that, whereas before you couldn't. How has this improved your quality of life?
Uh, it's it's like a lot of anger and frustration for how long I didn't have answers for. I remember my first period that was like completely pain-free and like I functioned, it was over the weekend and I purposely like made plans for every point of the day so that I would force myself to like help with the PTSD of like pain coming back.
Mhm.
And I was able to do it and I was like ecstatic and so happy and so grateful. But then I was also have a lot of resentment for how many things I missed out on in like 15 years. Like it's like heartbreaking to think of like all the things that could have been different in life and all the opportunities I could have had or taken up on. Even just like 2 years of high school, like those are supposed to be fun years and wasn't there for two of them. And even in
Yeah.
college, like, the opportunity to study abroad or do something like that, like I couldn't do it because my stomach issues or my periods or planning ahead for things. Like I remember my whole life being like, you know what, I can never get married because I would have to do like a shotgun wedding. Like I can't plan a year in advance or let alone 3 months in advance. Like it would have to be within a week. Like I can't plan anything outside of that.
Yeah.
Vacation,
Yeah.
trips, the amount of like last year, so it was before my surgery, I missed my uncle's funeral because I couldn't get, like I got my period that morning. I couldn't get out of bed. I couldn't get down the stairs, let alone get in a car
Mm.
and somewhere. So it's all those like life events that you just miss out on, that now I'm able to go to everything. So that for me is like the largest quality of life because I'm able to function, even if there's like a little bit of pain, like I can function through it. It's significant difference.
It's incredible when you say those things because we hear the statistics about, decrease in loss of days at school, absences or sports or work. But then when you talk to someone such as yourself who so eloquently is stating the heartbreaking nature of the disease and how many things that you missed out on, like 2 years of school or your uncle's funeral, to now have your life reclaimed and to be able to be a participant in your own life, um, that is incredibly hopeful and inspiring for those that are in your position a few years, but in your position from a few years ago, that they can reclaim their lives and they can become an active participant once again. Because endo does rob you of so many things, like you even said, being able to plan, being able to go on a vacation, even being able to plan something as wonderful as your wedding day. So, if you could offer any advice to someone watching out there who's been thinking they have endometriosis or newly diagnosed, what would that advice be?
Don't go to a doc, like if you're in a doctor's office and you have this feeling of like hopelessness and like I'm not getting any answers and this was a waste of time, just get out and go to the next one. Like
Hmm.
you're gonna find the doctor that's gonna help you. If you don't feel right about something, don't do it, don't take it. You know your body better than any doctor ever could. Like just listen to your body. You know if something's wrong. You know if you're over exaggerating, you're not over exaggerating. And just keep fighting for an answer. Don't give up because 50 doctors have given you nothing. Like there's going to be that doctor that's going to help you. And you'll feel it when you're in that office.
Thank you so much. Thank you for joining us. And don't forget to subscribe and like our YouTube page.